Well, good morning and welcome to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom, and we are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Marcus Street in Corning. I'm so glad that you've joined us this morning. We could probably just do breaking news for the full 2 hours. There is a lot of stories to catch up on from yesterday, but let's start with viewer comments, and we've got some cool ones continuing our recent tradition of adding to the map. First of all, let's go to the photos. That's in Frankfurt, the main train station. Brian believes there's only 3 stories of tracks there, and there, just to prove it, is the photo. So that is a virtual wave from Frankfurt, Germany, and one other one because Brian and Chris split up on their trip. We have in Switzerland, and you can see on his phone, watching Frankly Speaking in Switzerland. That is a first, of course. Interlaken, Switzerland. Got just a taste of Frankly Speaking, so thank you to Chris and Brian. This has been wonderful having this journey play out, and I've got to add the pins to our new map as well. How exciting. All right. And we go back to our regular pictures. We also have, what a way to kick off the program, Karen's quote of the week. And I'm going to try to read this if I recall, and I sometimes get caught up because there's so much to cover. I'm going to try to read it at the top of the 6 o'clock hour and the top of the 7 o'clock hour for those that maybe missed their alarm. And I'm going to try to, if I remember, I'll do the same with the pictures, the international Frankly Speaking updates. But this coming from Karen saying, good morning, Frank. Well, good morning, Karen. Congress returning from their August break reminds me of a presidential quote. So for this week's Karen's quote, a past president said, quote, I have wondered at times what the 10 Commandments would look like if Moses had run them through the Congress. That's from Ronald Reagan. Have a great day. You too, Karen. Thank you very much. Now that's the way to start a program. Away from Germany. Away from Switzerland. And a quote of the week. You know you picked a good day, folks, to tune in. All right, let's get to some breaking stories. We mentioned this quickly on yesterday's broadcast. This weird, I don't know what you would call it, rumor over the weekend that Trump had passed. Yes, that's what the internet had ran with. Well, President Trump addressed the rumors about his death that were spreading over the weekend. And we had mentioned on the program, imagine a guy takes a couple of days off and the media and the internet start to suggest this when we've seen his outrageous schedule. And you'll see that outrageous schedule today with the news cycle. He was asked by Fox News how Trump found out about his death over the weekend and if he saw it. Now, Trump had said he had not. He continued to note that while he took 2 days off from doing news conferences, Biden would go months without doing press conferences. He said no, he didn't see it. So Peter Doocy, said people didn't see you for a couple of days. 1.3 million user engagements as of Saturday morning about your demise. Trump said, really? I have heard. It's sort of crazy, but last week I did numerous news conferences, all successful. They went very well, like this is going very well, Trump said. And then I didn't do any for 2 days, and they said there must be something wrong with him. Biden wouldn't do them for months. You wouldn't see him, and nobody ever said that there was anything wrong with him. And we know he wasn't in the greatest shape. Now, when he first heard it, or when it was first maybe brought to his attention, Trump had said he never felt better in a truth post. He said he was very active over the weekend. But because he took a few days off from speaking with the media, many on the left used it as an opportunity to start hashtags like Trump is dead and hashtag where is Trump. His thin holiday schedule, which would probably put both of us to sleep by noon, a thin Trump schedule, was announced 4 days after his last public appearance at a cabinet meeting last Tuesday. I think that was the cabinet meeting that lasted, what? They said longer than the original Godfather, like 3 hours and 15 minutes. But he's exactly right. I mean, the media and those online never questioning Biden. As a matter of fact, you were called a conspiracy theorist if you did ask any questions. But he said, I was very active over the weekend. I went out to visit some people at the club that I own pretty nearby on the Potomac River. No, I've been very active, actually. He said, you wouldn't see Biden, and nobody ever said there's anything wrong with him, as J.D. Vance and Katie Britt both laughed at that assertion. And we know he wasn't in the best of shape. Well, they're trying to run with this idea because he had pictures with bruised hands and some leg swelling. It was all documented. They said exactly what it was. I'm not a doctor. I'm not going to go through the actual symptoms and what it was, but it was standard for his age. And this is weirdly, and I hate to say this, this is not how you or I would word it, but to some it was wishful thinking or fantasizing about Trump's demise. One such person, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz. Clips from a speech that he gave surfaced recently. It was over the Labor Day weekend when this started going viral. Walz, the failed VP candidate, said you get up in the morning and doom scroll through things, and although I will say this, the last few days you woke up thinking there might be news. And the crowd laughed. Just saying, there will be news sometime. Just so you know, there will be news. What a weird, almost evil thing to wish on somebody just because you're different in your political views. This followed repeated establishment media speculation over the state of President Trump's health over the last several days, which has become a newfound obsession. And I think it falls on deaf ears, except for people that very much hate Trump. And the reason I say that is it's hard to take the mainstream media seriously on any presidential health issues when they blissfully ignored it under Biden for 4 years. But you put that aside, members of the establishment media pointed to Trump's lack of public appearances after his cabinet meeting last week. But Trump responded to a Truth Social saying Joe Biden would go multiple days at a time without any public appearance, and the media would say he's sharp and top of his game. Meanwhile, well, they called it a comical double standard. New York Times did a whole probably 8 page piece, not full newspaper page, but they're about the same probably at this point. President Trump is alive. The internet was convinced otherwise, writes Katie Rogers. In the world of presidential health, distrust and speculation run so rampant that even Mr. Trump's online assurance that he was fine was immediately explained away as part of a cover-up. For a swath of hyper-online Americans over the long Labor Day weekend, their belief was the president was either dead or about to be. The reason being is there was purple bruises on his right hand and his ankles were swollen. He is also the oldest person to be elected president. So this is how they justify it in the mainstream media. Mr. Trump's critics have speculated about his health for long as he's been in national politics. If you recall, when he got COVID, they were saying that he's much sicker than he actually let on. I mean, it's all so predictable. On TikTok, influencers with legions of followers surmised that the White House was publishing old photos, suggesting that the president was being hidden from view. Reddit threads, one after another, were ablaze with commentary. On X, posts shared by anonymous critics disseminating dubious reports picked up thousands of interactions and shares. There was so much about this conversation that the president weighed in on it, as I had mentioned, with first the comment, never felt better in my life, and then later the reference to Biden. Anyway, enough of this. It's just sick, the kind of wishful thinking from those. Well, it proves the Trump derangement syndrome, doesn't it? It proves the hatred that's out there for him. Listen to this. Mike Rothschild, a journalist and author who studies conspiracy movements, said there's always been this wishful thinking industry around Trump's health and Trump's legal woes. There's been this far-left influencer sphere that is constantly pumping up the idea that Trump is about to go to prison or the walls are closing in. He's not it's sad that he used wishful thinking. If I had $1 for every time I heard the walls were closing in when it came to Trump, especially on the legal side of things. So he is exactly right there. But we're not going to go through all the health speculation. Carolyn Levitt did say he has been completely transparent about his health with the public, unlike his predecessor. Also, I guess people were bored this weekend. There's videos that came out of things being thrown out of the White House window. Trump suggesting it's probably AI generated, despite an aide confirming that the bizarre footage was real and it was because of contractor work. Trump said, actually, you can't open those windows. You know why? They're all heavily armored and bulletproof. I know every window up there. The last place I'd be doing it is that, because there's cameras all over the place, right, including yours. He even went on to claim that his wife, Melania, had recently complained about the lack of natural ventilation. She said, I'd love to have a little fresh air come in, but you can't. They're bulletproof. Number one, they're sealed. And number two, each window weighs about 600 pounds. You have to be pretty strong to open them up. Trump swept aside the idea that could have been the renovation project. He said, yeah, those windows are sealed. Those windows are all, they're sealed. You can't open them. One of the problems we have with AI is both good and bad. If something happens really bad, just blame AI. But also they create things. You know, it works both ways. If something happens that's really bad, maybe I'll have to just blame AI. I see so many phony things. I saw something as I was growing up from the time I was a baby until now. I said, who did that? It was AI generated. So it's a little scary, to be honest with you. But those windows are all very heavily sealed. Now, we later learned that the person behind the mysterious dumping was a contractor who was doing regular maintenance while the president was gone. Perhaps that's how they were able to open the window as the president was gone. The video appeared to be filmed from the rooftop of the nearby Hotel Washington or a neighboring building. It wasn't immediately clear what the objects were or where they're being thrown, why they're being thrown through the window. There you are. How about that for some strange beginnings to the program? Now, if you haven't, and I know I'm already running late, but we have so much to get to. We are going to talk about China. We're going to talk about some kind of throwaway stories that there are no real segues to, but I think that are very important. Then we'll talk about the National Guard. Got quite a few New York State updates, so stay with us. We're already having a blast on the program. I'm so glad that you joined us. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking.
Steuben County Office for the Aging will be hosting a public hearing on Thursday, September 18th at First Presbyterian Church in Bath. This hearing is to review the 2026 annual implementation plan for the Older Americans Act and the Steuben County Office for the Aging. This public hearing will take place at 9 a.m. on Thursday, September 18th in the Fellowship Hall of the First Presbyterian Church in Bath. Copies of the plan will be available at the Office for the Aging.
In Albina, Buffalo, was born.
Nearly 500 kilos of cocaine has been seized in a bust.
Thousands lined the pier at Seneca Harbor. Race weekend brought thousands to Watkins Glen International.
Hundreds and horse heads joined other cities around the country on Saturday for the No Kings protest.
Day one of the National Glider Competition. Severe flooding has caused major disruptions in parts of Steuben County.
Throughout the year, prison reform has become a priority around New York State.
Something with a diamond in it.
Diamondback rattlesnake.
It's in the name. Name a low-calorie food you might make your edible underwear out of.
Salmon.
Watch it weeknights. Share it the next day.
Wild caught Norwegian teriyaki.
Share in the fun. Weeknights on Family Feud.
7 and 7:30 on Big Fox.
If you are one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer. If you used hair relaxers and have been diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call us now. There's no fee unless we win your case. Call today.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. Yesterday, I don't know if you've seen the dramatic video, but President Trump carried out a strike in the Southern Caribbean against a drug-carrying vessel that departed from Venezuela and was operated by the Tren de Aragua gang, TDA. The president said in a social media post that 11 people were killed in the rare U.S. military operation in the Americas, a dramatic escalation in the Republican administration's efforts to stem the flow of narcotics from Latin America. This is coming from the Associated Press. Trump also posted a short video clip of a small vessel appearing to explode in flames. Trump said on Truth Social, "The strike occurred while the terrorists were at sea in international waters, transporting illegal narcotics headed to the United States. No U.S. forces were harmed in the strike. Please let this serve as notice to anybody even thinking about bringing drugs into the United States of America." The video, which is largely in black and white, is not clear enough to see if the craft is carrying as many as 11 people. The video also did not show any large or clear stashes of drugs inside the boat. Okay. After Trump announced the strike, Venezuelan state television showed Maduro and First Lady Celia Flores walking the streets of his childhood neighborhood. A television presenter said Maduro was bathing in patriotic love. In the face of imperialist threats, God is with us, Maduro told supporters. Maduro did not address the strike directly, but charged that the U.S. is coming for Venezuelans' riches, including oil and gas. The South American country has the world's largest proven oil reserves. So he had said that the military had shot out, this is Trump, a Venezuelan drug-carrying boat, adding that there were a lot of drugs on the boat. This was during a press conference. When you come out and when you leave the room, you'll see that we just, over the last few minutes, literally shot out a boat, a drug-carrying boat. Lots of drugs on the boat, and you'll see that you'll be reading about this. It just happened moments ago. Our great general, head of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, who has been incredible, including what took place in Iran, knocking out potential nuclear power for a long time to come. I think within a month, they would have had it if we didn't do what we did. He gave us a little bit of a briefing. There's more where that came from, meaning in Venezuela. We have a lot of drugs pouring into our country, coming in for a long time, and these came out of Venezuela. Secretary of State Marco Rubio also confirmed that the U.S. military had conducted a lethal strike on a drug-carrying boat that had departed from Venezuela. It was being operated by a designated narco-terrorist organization, saying, "As President just announced moments ago, today the U.S. military conducted a lethal strike in the Southern Caribbean against a drug vessel which had departed from Venezuela and was being operated by a designated narco-terrorist organization." This is what I mean by the Trump news cycle. But there's just so much to cover. If you haven't seen the footage, I would highly recommend it. I saw it at the New York Post this morning. Trump also wrote on social media, TDA is a designated foreign terrorist organization operating under the control of Nicolas Maduro, responsible for mass murder, drug trafficking, sex trafficking, and acts of violence and terror across the United States and Western Hemisphere. No U.S. forces were harmed in the strike. Please let this serve as notice to anybody even thinking about bringing drugs into the United States of America. Beware. Also, on the international front, if you will, China's Xi Jinping hosted the largest ever military parade alongside Vladimir Putin and Kim Jong-un. They're trying to present themselves, if you will, as the world's superpower. China kicked off its parade, a show of its growing firepower and geopolitical clout, as President Xi Jinping seeks to cast Beijing as the custodian of a post-U.S. international order. Flanked by Putin and Kim Jong-un, Xi was shown on television strolling up a red carpet to take his seat for the lavish event at Tiananmen Square to mark 80 years since Japan's defeat at the end of World War II. I'm not going to give you all the, they tell you everything that everybody was wearing, these type of things. The highly choreographed Victory Day spectacle comes as Trump's America First stance and trade wars have strained Washington's long-standing alliances. Asked whether he sees the parade as a challenge to the United States, Trump said he didn't and reiterated he has very good relationship. China needs us much more than we need them. Now more than 50,000 spectators at Tiananmen Square packed into stands awaiting the 70-minute showcase of aerial displays, marching troops, as well as cutting-edge military equipment. Now, when Trump was asked about the brutal dictators of China, Russia, and North Korea meeting, he said they will conspire against the United States of America at a military parade. That's what he said in a Truth Social. May President Xi and the wonderful people of China have a great and lasting day of celebration. Please give my warmest regards to Vladimir Putin and Kim Jong-un as you conspire against the United States of America. The Chinese Communist Party leader was flanked, I said, by Putin and Kim as they walked down a red carpet to take their seats. President Trump, in a social media post, said the biggest question to be answered is whether or not President Xi of China will mention the massive amount of support and blood that the United States of America gave to China in order to help it to secure its freedom from a very unfriendly foreign invader. Many Americans died in China's quest for victory and glory. I hope that they are rightfully honored and remembered for their bravery and sacrifice. But an interesting statement. Please give my warmest regards to Vladimir Putin and Kim Jong-un as you conspire against the United States of America. So we see where this heads. We have talked about, really since episode 1 here, the real serious threat of China. Iran's lost a little bit of power recently, but China, Russia, Iran, North Korea, looking to fill some type of void in their minds and be a superpower, the leading superpower. We talked about this with former Congressman Tom Reed quite a while ago, but the idea that they already believe that they are, when many experts are saying they are nearing that scenario, but not there yet. Now, Stephen Collinson said President Donald Trump is mad that China is palling around with his strongmen friends. Trump erupted on social media late Tuesday as television footage aired, and this is in reference to that conspire message. The Truth Social post heard around the world means one thing. If China's two big gatherings of authoritarian leaders, U.S. adversaries, and erstwhile allies this week was intended as a personal affront to the president, it worked perfectly, and underscored the futility of his attempts to subject the true global hardmen to his art of the deal charms and his claims that his supposedly close relationships with such leaders can be decisive. This is just a way for Stephen Collinson and CNN to criticize Trump no matter which way the wind blows. They've got every way covered. Trump's fury was ironic, since the last few days in China have been the kind of performative spectacle that he loves. But the gathering of anti-Western powers is about more than trolling. It's an early warning that Trump's second-term policies based on tariffs, the bullying of lesser powers, and America First nationalism may be backfiring. China is leveraging the missteps or mistakes that the U.S. is making, said Jackie S.H. Wong, an assistant professor of international studies at the American University of Sharjah. Anyway, looking at it as a criticism, but of course something to watch and to keep an eye on very, very closely. When we come back, we're going to have a whole section. We'll read your comments, but we'll have a whole section of activist judges. Like I said, there's not a lot of segueing here. It's more to bring you the breaking news of yesterday, which continues. There's a lot to cover, so we're going to try to get to as much of it as we possibly can. Also, the big news yesterday, good news for Alabama. I don't know if you saw that, but we learned that U.S. Space Command will be moving its headquarters from Colorado Springs, Colorado, to Huntsville, Alabama, which is a major aerospace hub, already known as Rocket City. The U.S. Space Command, which is responsible for defending U.S. satellites and conducting military operations in space, will relocate to the Redstone Arsenal Base, home of the NASA's Marshall Space Flight Center and the Army Space and Missile Defense Command. Now, there's been a lot of back and forth on this because Biden originally reversed Trump's original decision to have it in Huntsville and making the command's headquarters in Colorado. Biden's move was investigated by government watchdogs, et cetera, et cetera. It's estimated the move will bring in as many as 1,800 jobs to Huntsville and an influx of dollars from Uncle Sam for local contractors. While Colorado's economy stands to lose $1 billion per year based on previous statements from the local Chamber of Commerce. There we are. Okay, we'll keep the breaking news coming. Feel free to weigh in on all of them. any of them, or change the topic. I'd love to hear from you. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking after this.
Valicinti Advisory Services has been building long-term relationships in our community for over 35 years. We pride ourselves in the ability of our teams in wealth management and tax and business to work together to offer coordinated planning services for our clients. The mission of Valicinti Advisory Services is to provide specialized wealth management, tax, and business services to help clients meet their personal financial goals. Valicinti Advisory Services, Water Street in Elmira, Market Street in Corning. Visit us at valicinti.com.
Time to go to the gym? The health club is not an option? Come to Hesselson today and see why swim spas and fitness systems can fit into anyone's yard and budget. 12-foot, 14-foot, 15-foot, 18-foot dual temperature hot tub and swim spas are all on display in Hesselson's indoor and outdoor showroom. Try before you buy. 0% interest-free financing options are available on every Hesselson swim spa. Swim and exercise year-round and start making every day better. After 70 years, it's still fun to poke in the corners at Hesselson's.
The Fox Sports app isn't just any sports app. It's your sports app.
For the touchdown!
Yeah, yours. Your teams. Your highlights. Your scores. Your stories. Just choose your favorites to get more of what you want.
To the end zone!
And of course, stream your teams live. The best part is free with your pay TV subscription. Grab your Fox Sports app today.
It's a season of sharing.
Having a good time has always been my #1 goal. I tend to get crazy. At my age, I should not be jumping up and down like that. And if you don't know what I mean, ask your mama. The young ones, y'all like, we don't know what you're talking about. But I promise you, in 30 years, you will.
It's the best time in daytime.
Weekdays at 2 p.m. on Big Fox.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security and Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. Comment from a viewer before we start talking about judicial decisions. Good morning, Frank. Well, good morning. All of these wishful, doomsday, President Trump derangement haters are really just dividing the country more and more. I wonder how much of this divisive information is generated from other countries. That's a great point, especially when you have the one from over this weekend where they were trying to suggest that Trump could even be dead, and people ran with it. The fact that you even, and you use the word, I use the word, someone else used the word, but to say wishful thinking is just shows that the Trump derangement syndrome is an actual term. I mean, it's something that isn't just a kind of not name calling. I mean, what else could you call it when Tim Walz, who was in the running for vice president of the United States, actually joking about it, saying he was looking forward to the news? But on the judge front, a federal judge ruled yesterday that President Trump's administration, quote, willfully broke federal law by sending the National Guard troops to the Los Angeles area in early June after days of protests over immigration raids. Little did you know when you voted for President of the United States that your vote didn't matter. It was more the judges that at the end of the day would play the most important role. Did you know that? In the 52-page ruling, U.S. District Judge Charles Breyer in San Francisco noted Trump and Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth have stated their intention to deploy National Guard troops to other cities across the country, including Oakland and San Francisco. And that raises concerns that they are, quote, creating a national police force with the president as its chief. Breyer did not require the 300 remaining soldiers to leave, but pointed out they received improper training and ordered the administration to stop using them to execute the laws. The order that applies only to California will take effect September the 12th. White House spokeswoman Ann Kelly said, once again, a rogue judge is trying to usurp the authority of the commander-in-chief to protect American cities from violence and destruction. Yes, they are They are these rogue activist judges who believe that they have more power, or at least the power to thwart the agenda that the American people overwhelmingly voted for. It was unclear if the order could set a precedent that could impact plans by Trump, who has discussed National Guard deployment in Chicago, in Baltimore, and New York. Breyer said in his ruling that the Trump administration used troops for functions that were barred by their own training materials, refused to, quote, meaningfully coordinate with state and local officials, and coached federal law enforcement agencies on the language to use when requesting the Guard's assistance. He said the government knew, quote, they were ordering troops to execute domestic law beyond their usual authority and using armed soldiers, whose identities were often obstructed by protective armor, and military vehicles to set up protective parameters and traffic blockades, engage in crowd control, and otherwise demonstrate a military presence in and around Los Angeles. Breyer barred troops from such action, including making arrests, searches, acting as informants, and collecting evidence. I wonder if it's okay to use the National Guard as corrections officers. I noticed that wasn't mentioned in there. So there you are. Gavin Newsom said in a statement the court sided with democracy. No president is a king, not even Trump, and no president can trample a state's power to protect its people. An appeals court blocked Trump from deporting members of TDA, Tren de Aruga gang. A federal appeals court ruled on Tuesday that the Trump administration cannot, so this is a second story, a different set of activist judges, cannot speed the deportation of migrants accused of being members of the Venezuelan gang using an 18th century wartime law. In a 2-1 ruling, the Fifth U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals sided with immigrant rights lawyers and lower court judges who argued the Alien Enemies Act of 1798 was not created to be used against gangs like Tren de Aruga. In 1798, I wonder, was Tren de Aruga around? Of course not, I say that just to show the hoops that they have to jump through. Quote, the Trump administration's use of a wartime statute during peacetime to regulate immigration was rightly shut down by the court, said Lee Gilmert, who argued the case for the American Civil Liberties Union. This is a critically important decision, reining in the administration's view that it can simply declare an emergency without any oversight by the courts. The Alien Enemies Act was previously used only 3 times in U.S. history, and all came during declared wars in the War of 1812 and the 2 World Wars. The Trump administration claimed that courts cannot second-guess the president's determination that Tren de Aruga was connected to Venezuela's government and represented a danger to the U.S., which they argued warranted using the law. In a 2-1 ruling, the court granted the preliminary injunction sought by the plaintiffs because they, quote, found no invasion or predatory incursion in this case. The court's ruling blocks deportations from Texas, Louisiana, and Mississippi. The majority opinion said Trump's allegations about Tren de Aruga do not meet the historical levels of national conflict that Congress intends for when the law was approved. Quote, a country encouraging its residents and citizens to enter this country illegally is not the modern-day equivalent of sending an armed, organized force to occupy, disrupt, or otherwise harm the United States, they wrote in their statement. Would you agree when you see some of the violence on the streets and you see what the gangs are involved in? Would you say that maybe it's armed, organized force to occupy, they're here to disrupt or otherwise harm the U.S.? Again, putting these groups, and we've seen Trump do this with Democrats in general, putting them in a really unsavory position of defending the indefensible. In a dissent, U.S. Circuit Judge Andrew Oldman said the majority's approach to this case is not only unprecedented, it is contrary to more than 200 years of precedent. The ruling can be appealed to the full Fifth Circuit or directly to the U.S. Supreme Court, which is expected to make the ultimate decision in the case. So there you go. The appeals court also, a federal appeals court in Washington, D.C., allowed a Biden-appointed member of the Federal Trade Commission to keep her job, at least for now, as part of a lawsuit centered on President Trump's authority to remove members of independent agencies without cause. In a 2-1 order, a 3-judge panel agreed with a lower court that Trump unlawfully fired FTC Commissioner Rebecca Slaughter and that her firing was squarely at odds with Supreme Court precedent. Quote, the government has no likelihood of success on appeal given controlling and directing on point Supreme Court precedent, adding that bucking such precedent is not within this court's job description. So there you are. There's your judge updates. We seem to have those almost every day. We could make a segment out of it. Maybe we'll have to get a jingle with rogue activist judges who are apparently, what we have learned since November, January, that they are more powerful. These nameless, faceless judges that you don't know who they are in most scenarios, they are more powerful than not only the President of the United States, more powerful than the voters who voted for the president's agenda. Something to keep in mind as we add to the list of some of the frustrations this morning. We got to take a short break. Stay with us. This is, Frankly Speaking, here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. We will be, I think, let me check if I'm on the right break. We will be right back.
The Nissan Rogue takes hit after hit, punished under immense pressure, and exposed to excessive wear. We put it through the worst, so you get its best. Now get 0% APR financing for 60 months on the 2025 Nissan Rogue, Pathfinder, or Murano.
You can just keep watching and scrolling, and the world will still feel like it's falling apart.
Widespread missile attack. Highest hospitalization. Also evacuation in the West. Forced labor.
Or you can take action by joining a movement that's creating real and lasting change instead. Partnering with communities around the globe to help uproot poverty and plant seeds of hope for a brighter tomorrow. Because at World Vision, we believe that no situation is hopeless. Join a movement that's changing the world for good.
If you or one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer. If you used hair relaxers and have been diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call us now. There's no fee unless we win your case. Call today.
Our picturesque view of historic Market Street in the heart of the Gaffer District. That view, of course, brought to you by our good friends at Boss Security and Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street Corning. I know we are breezing through a lot of very different topics this morning that we are going to dive in depth on a few things, specifically the National Guard that we mentioned earlier, but the National Guard in Washington with the potential of California, Chicago is being mentioned, of course, because of the deadly Labor Day weekend. We'll be talking about that in just a moment. But first, Senator Joni Ernst revealed, as was speculated, and I think we may have mentioned the speculation on yesterday's program, that she will not seek another term in 2026. The senator ending more than 10 years and retiring from a career in public service that has spanned the U.S. Army Reserve, the Iowa Army National Guard, and state and federal elected offices. She said, serving as your United States Senator is a privilege of a lifetime. Now, as our family grows and ages, it's my time to give back to them. After a tremendous amount of prayer and reflection, I will not be seeking re-election in 2026. Ernst said she was proud of her record, pointing to efforts to cut government waste, protect the unborn, strengthen the military, support veterans, and stand with Iowa farmers and small businesses. Quote, while this chapter of elected service will soon close, I will always find ways to best serve my community, state, and these great United States of America. Now, many people praising her service. We don't need to go through each of those. Throughout her Senate tenure, Ernst became known for her Make Washington Squeal campaign, promised to expose waste and fraud in government. She founded the Department of Government Efficiency Caucus and pushed legislation, including Sarah's Law, building on the Lake and Riley Act, to require federal authorities to detain illegal aliens charged with serious crimes. Ernst also pressed to rescind billions in federal funding for projects she described as over-budget boondoggles, including California's high-speed rail and the Postal Service's electric vehicle program. Her oversight efforts extended to uncovering billions of dollars in coronavirus aid fraud, federal misuse of government credit cards, and wasteful spending on international programs. In August, Ernst called for the Department of Transportation to reclaim $14 billion from delayed and over-budgeted rail projects. First elected back in 2014, it's hard to believe where the time goes, Ernst made history as the first woman from Iowa elected to the U.S. Senate and the chamber's first female combat veteran. She was reelected in 2020 and will complete her second term in January of 2027. So there you are, Joni Ernst retiring. Well, not running for re-election is a better way to put that, of the Senate. We also learned yesterday, sources are saying that President Trump will be attending the New York Yankees game in the Bronx on September 11th, the 24th anniversary of the 9/11 terrorist attacks. That's sources that spoke with Fox Digital. Trump has attended numerous sporting events over the years, as you are aware, but has not attended a baseball game during his second presidency. That will be a very symbolic and very touching move. We don't need to know the whole record of the Yankees here. Now, next year, the Yankees and Mets will play a game on September 11th at Yankee Stadium to commemorate the 25th anniversary of 9/11. They did the same in 2021 at Citi Field, with the Mets wearing specialized New York uniforms as opposed to their normal home Mets jerseys. Sources say Vice President J.D. Vance will represent the administration at a commemoration ceremony at Ground Zero in Lower Manhattan, with Trump scheduled to attend a memorial event at the Pentagon in Northern Virginia earlier in the day. Okay, speaking of Vice President J.D. Vance and, in this case, Second Lady Usha, they will be traveling to Minneapolis, Minnesota on Wednesday, today, to pay their respects to victims of last week's mass shooting at the Annunciation Catholic School. The couple will hold a series of private meetings to convey condolences to the families of those affected by the tragedy. We know about the tragic details of that shooting. We know, sadly, those that seek to politicize it. I like that J.D. Vance is attending when he is. I don't want to go through the manifesto of the shooter. We don't need to know all of that. But in the aftermath of the shooting, J.D. Vance has been critical and I think very effective in his attacks against Democrats, or his criticism against Democrats' attacks on anyone offering thoughts and prayers. That was a big topic on this program last week. It's so shocking to me that so many left-wing politicians attack the idea of prayer in response to a tragedy. Literally, no one thinks prayer is a substitute for action. We pray because our hearts are broken and we believe that God is listening. So there you are. J.D. Vance and Usha Vance will be visiting Minnesota to pay their respects to the victims of the Catholic school mass shooting today. All right, when we come back, we are going to talk about the National Guard, kind of get in depth on that. I do have some interesting updates. I don't want to talk too much about Mamadani, but there's a couple of quick updates on that as well. Governor Hochul giving a sit-down interview with, I'm not sure which outlet, it's somewhere here in my stack, but we'll give you some of what she had to say in those interviews. I know a lot of files, what was it? How many files was it released in the Epstein case? 30,000 pages of Epstein files provided by the DOJ. If that is a topic that you are interested in or that you have studied. I'd love to hear from you. We may get to that a little bit later on, but we do have a lot to cover, as I've mentioned all morning long. It was a busy news cycle yesterday. We are going to give you a couple updates on media as well, and maybe a little bit about the Democrat Party. We mentioned 9/11. There's a really interesting piece, again, not sure we'll have time to get to it, by Michael Goodwin in the New York Post today, saying what we need as mayor of New York City is a Rudy Giuliani, not a Zohran Mamdani. So if we get a chance, we'll mention that as well. But right now, we got to take a short break, so stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
Hi, this is Tom Witzel, owner of Hesselson's in Amara Heights. At Hesselson's, we care about your well-being and overall health, whether it's relieving stress, muscle recovery, increasing circulation, or just revitalizing the body. Hesselson's now has 2 complete line of infrared and traditional rock saunas in our new and expanded showroom. Come in today and see why owning a sauna is a start of your new healthy lifestyle. Hesselson's is still locally and family-owned and operated in Amara Heights. After 70 years, it's still fun to poke in the corners at Hesselson's.
We've had many wonderful memories as a family. Dropping Shelly off at school, I prayed he wouldn't get stuffed in a gym bag. Missy might have been the one in Little League. I'm asking the Lord to watch over my little girl.
Well, while you're at it, ask him for a win. I got money on this.
But Georgie is the one who threw us the real curveball.
I got a girl pregnant.
Oh, no. Are you kidding me? We may not be perfect, but to me, we have the perfect family.
Big Fox 10 p.m. News is the first primetime local news for the Twin Tiers. Our reporters, Haley and Dante, scour the Southern Tier to bring you up-to-date news regarding local businesses, economics, and how national decisions impact our area. If you're not near a TV, don't worry. You can also catch our 10 p.m. news live on WYDCTV.com/livestream. Don't miss Big Fox 10 p.m. News on WYDC, on TV, or our website.
Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. Let's go to some viewer comments, our favorite part of the program. Good morning, Frank. Well, good morning. Is it okay with Hochul for Trump to come to Yankee Stadium? He could threaten democracy. That's a good point. If Hochul had her say, I'm sure he would not be coming to Yankee Stadium. And I'm sure she wanted to make the ceremony about her and have her attend. So that's a very good point. We'll see what kind of reaction she has as it nears. I mean, it's hard to believe it's already September, isn't it? We'll see what her response is to that. But yes, I could see her saying he's not welcome here, that type of thing. Comment from Mark, who says good morning, and we say good morning to Mark. I'm surprised that the Democrats have not called the boat that Trump had attacked a fishing boat and not a drug boat, just saying they make up their own stories. Mark, you raise a good point, because if you saw that, where was I reading from? The AP. They tried to at least plant the seed in your mind of doubt, saying that the video that was released did not show how many people, because it was reported by Trump that 11 people were taken out in that. You could not see 11 people or any type of substantial stash, they said. So not going as far as what you were saying about it being a fishing boat, but I could see that being next, because they've started the process. They've started the planting of the seed of questioning it. So you're spot on, Mark. All right. I get your point. When are they releasing the Clinton home movies? Talking about Epstein, and we won't get into the details of your exact quote, but I like it. Okay, let's talk about the National Guard. This is interesting. Mayor Muriel Bowser issued an executive order yesterday directing the Metropolitan Police Department to work and cooperate with federal law enforcement officials indefinitely. A press release from Bowser's office stated that the mayor's order continues the work of the Safe and Beautiful Emergency Operations Center in managing the district's response to the Safe and Beautiful Task Force, which was established by President Trump, hence the name Beautiful in there. The order from Bowser comes as Trump in early August announced that she was officially invoking Section 740 of the District of Columbia Home Rule, and that the NPD would be placed under direct federal control. Trump also activated the National Guard. Per her press release, the SBEOC will communicate the district's request that federal partners adhere to established policing practices, that maintain community confidence in law enforcement officers, such as not wearing masks, clearly identifying their agency, and providing identification during arrests and encounters with the public. Post-emergency planning will include the coordination of continued enhanced federal law enforcement efforts with the following agencies, which the district regularly works with: the United States Marshal Service, Federal Bureau of Investigation, the United States Park Police, the Drug Enforcement Administration, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, the United States Capitol Police, and the United States Secret Service. Today, I issued Mayor's Order 2025-090 to provide the pathway forward beyond the presidential emergencies. Now, in Chicago, they are not looking kindly or friendly on Trump continuing to float the idea that he is going to send troops to Chicago. I do want to talk about that, but looking at the time, do we want to get into that right this second? Yes, we probably should. Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson was on MSNBC. He says it's clear that this is not about safety for President Trump, because if it were, he would not have cut over $800 million from violence prevention programs like what we have in the city of Chicago, where we have CVI workers that are working to disrupt violence. If this were about safety, he would not have cut, the ATF budget by nearly 30%. My police department has collaborated with the federal government to get illegal guns off the street of Chicago. Just a couple of weeks ago, we took over 170 guns off the streets of Chicago. Many of them have switches or attachments that allow for guns to be turned into machine guns. These are severe, high-power weapons. If the president was serious about safety, he would go into the red states where guns are being trafficked from, Mississippi, Indiana, and come into the city of Chicago and cause the type of violence that we saw just this past weekend. This president is trampling on our Constitution. He's behaving in a way that is undermining our democracy. I think he got everything covered so far, right? And he's trying to get us to submit our humanity to his will. Oh, I haven't heard it worded that way before. He's trying to get us to submit our humanity to his will. That's not what we're going to do in the city of Chicago. We're going to stand up for working people, make the necessary investments, hold the people accountable who are causing harm. But we need this president to actually show up with real investments. If he were serious, why did he cut 30% of the budget of ATF? Americans who have been serving in these capacities got cut from his budget. For what? To militarize ICE, his own private security entity that causes harm and terror against communities. So ICE is causing harm and terror against communities. Interesting. This president is reprehensible. His behavior at this moment, and that's why we're standing firm in the city of Chicago to protect people, to stand up for people, and then to invest in people. It is interesting that it always goes back to we want more money as compared to safety. Governor Pritzker weighed in on this as well. We'll tell you about that. But we're going to wrap up hour number one in just a few seconds. Let's take this break, get your last minute comments in for this hour, and we'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
When you're in the military, you reach a point in your career where you've traveled enough, and that was our situation, and we were ready to retire from the military, and we found a house here that we felt would be a great environment for our children to grow up in. The process is, I would say, fairly easy. I've done it 3 times now, so I'm a repeat customer, and my message to veterans, active duty, retired, is that really seriously look at the VA Home Loan Program. It has been transformational to my family because we were wanting to look for a home here in the DC area that we could settle down in, and building equity in the home is a big part of the program.
Home for me is family. It's a place where you know your neighborhood, you know your neighbors. It's not just a house, it's really what's around that makes it home.
If you or a loved one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer. If you used hair relaxers and have been diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call us now. There's no fee unless we win your case. Call today.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio, wrapping up hour number 1. A comment from a viewer. Good morning. Well, hey, good morning. I'm amazed to learn that guns were able to somehow get from other states to Chicago. How did they grow legs? Will wonders never cease? Yes, the language that they use. Who was it? Tim Walz, who's apparently saying some pretty radical things lately. Well, he always has, but I mean, just some really, really nasty things. But he was talking about Americans have too many guns and the wrong kind of guns. So his rhetoric is he should be judge, jury, and executioner of what is right, what is wrong when it comes to your constitutional rights. In this case, they use phrases like that as if the gun did grow legs and walk into Chicago. Illinois Governor J.D. Pritzker and Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson, who we were talking about earlier, have continued to push back on Trump's planned deployment of federal agents after that deadly Labor Day weekend. Trump took to social media, as you recall, to say, solve Chicago's violent crime problem, just like I did in D.C. after 54 people were shot over the weekend. Pritzker needs help badly. He just doesn't know it yet. I will solve the crime problem fast, just like I did in D.C. Chicago will be safe again and soon make America great again. Pritzker initially responded with a threat on X accusing Trump of authoritarian overreach and warning that Illinois would not stand idly by if the National Guard were deployed in Chicago. Isn't it interesting that it's an authoritarian overreach trying to clean up these cities that have such deadly violence? 54 people shot. I think there were 7 dead over the Labor Day weekend. And yet somehow this is... So again, they find themselves on the side that is defending crime and criminals. And they've done this in the past with illegal immigration as well, that they say that they end up finding themselves defending illegal immigration, defending, in this case, crime. Now, if you recall, Brandon Johnson, the mayor, signed an executive order barring Chicago police from cooperating with federal authorities on immigration enforcement and prohibiting officers from assisting in patrols, checkpoints, or traffic stops tied to federal operations, claiming the measure was needed to protect constitutional rights. So by signing this executive order to ban these police forces from working together, that's not an authoritarian overreach? Well, that, of course, in typical Trump fashion, did not cause Trump to back down. He plans to use Chicago's Great Lakes Naval Station to support upcoming immigration enforcement sweeps. Speaking at a joint news conference, Johnson and Pritzker further denounced the deployment of the National Guard, saying, "Chicago does not want troops on our streets. I refuse to play a reality game show with Donald Trump again." That's what Pritzker said. That's a weak statement, trying to go back to Trump's time with The Apprentice, I guess. He's trying. Federal officers are scheduled to remain at Great Lakes Naval Station through the end of September. A spokesperson said the base will provide limited support in the forms of facilities, infrastructure, and other logistical needs. It's not about fighting crime, but about testing power to produce political drama to cover up corruption, Pritzker continued. National Guard troops, any kind of troops on the streets of an American city, don't belong unless there's an insurrection, unless there is an emergency. When asked about Chicago, Trump said, "We're going in. I have an obligation, and this isn't a political thing." So on that note, we're going to talk more about this and some of the criticism, not just coming from the right, of J.D. Pritzker. So stay with us on that, and we'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox, hour number 2, coming up next.
William Mattar has earned a reputation for being a straight shooter.
Because I am a straight shooter.
For being honest.
Here's what we're willing to pay.
Because I am honest.
For winning a lot.
Because we win a lot.
If you've been injured in a motor vehicle accident, it matters who you hire. It matters in the experience as well as the results. Call William Mattar. Visit WilliamMattar.com.
When you're running, don't forget to visit our Facebook page at Big Fox News. Catch up on news from the Twin Tiers. Vote on the daily question and hear about local events. All on Facebook.com/Big Fox News.
Steuben County Office for the Aging will be hosting a public hearing on Thursday, September 18th at First Presbyterian Church in Bath. This hearing is to review the 2026 annual implementation plan for the Older Americans Act and the Steuben County Office for the Aging. This public hearing will take place at 9 a.m. on Thursday, September 18th in the Fellowship Hall of the First Presbyterian Church in Bath. Copies of the plan will be available at the Office for the Aging.
When you're online, don't forget to visit our Facebook page at Big Fox News. Catch up on news from the Twin Tiers. Check out our newsreels and hear about local events. All on Facebook.com/Big.
Welcome to hour number 2 of Frankly Speaking, as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. Thank you for joining us. If you missed, please humor me, if you missed the beginning of the program at 6, it's only fair that we bring this up because we got 2 amazing waves. No, I will not add them as extra waves to the wave count, but Frankly Speaking is going international, so we had to show. There is Chris watching Frankly Speaking, as you see in his hand, watching Frankly Speaking in Interlaken, Switzerland. Thank you to Chris for, I wonder what episode. I wonder what we're talking about. I'll be on my best behavior. We won't talk about Switzerland politics on the program. And then we heard from Brian giving us a big wave in Frankfurt, Germany at the train track. So thank you very much to both those guys. And also, just because we had such a great kickoff to the program this morning, Karen sent in her quote of the week. And I want to make sure, again, if you missed it. Congress returning from the August break reminded me of a presidential quote. So for this week's Karen's quote, I have wondered at times what the 10 Commandments would look like if Moses had run them through the Congress. That was Ronald Reagan. Thank you, as always, Karen. So pretty exciting, all these international waves, great quotes. We're almost having too much fun on the program, aren't we? All right, we were talking about Pritzker. Janine Pirro, I know it's almost a force of habit to call her Judge Janine, but it's Janine Pirro, the U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia, also Elmira native, criticized Democrat leaders for opposing the Trump administration's crime crackdown. She singled out J.D. Pritzker. And again, when J.D. Pritzker is talking about this being authoritarian, after people see the numbers and the deadly weekend that they had, it comes off, and rightfully so, as him more in support of crime as compared to being in support of the citizens of his state. Pirro said, this guy Pritzker, he should be ashamed of himself. It is a rejection of your oath to protect the people. Wow, she's exactly spot on. Yep, I mean, this is literally, excuse me, she's exactly right. Pirro strongly rejected the arguments that this is performative political action and these type of things, saying, who is entitled to say crime is low enough and let's not bother? That's a great way of putting it. Oh, no, crime is low enough. There's only this amount of murders and only this amount of rapes and robbery. Who among us is willing to say, I'm willing to have my child shot tonight in Chicago or next weekend, said Janine Pirro, Elmira native. We know that when carjackings go down, I'm sorry, that was Bowser. I'm jumping around here. I wanted to see, here we go. Pirro had argued that Democrat leaders are resisting assistance and federal involvement simply because it comes from the White House. The truth is that these people are about ideology and power. They should sit with the families of homicide victims. They should talk to the mothers who don't know if their sons are coming home tonight because of the gunfire that is pervasive. Only President Trump is the one who's willing to put the resources, the energy, and yes, he has the determination to make this work, and it is working. Even Joe Scarborough, obviously no fan of Trump, no fan of the Republican Party, he urged J.B. Pritzker to partner up with Trump, saying radical moves were needed in the wake of the bloody Labor Day weekend. This was on yesterday's Morning Joe. Even after when he appeared to downplay crime in Chicago on his show just last week. Joe Scarborough saying, I actually think that J.D. Pritzker should do something radical. I think he should pick up the phone, call the president and say, you know, and I know, you don't have the constitutional authority to deploy the National Guard here. You can do that in D.C., you can't do that in Chicago. But let's partner up. He slammed Pritzker and Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson for their mismanagement of crime in the city, where 54 people were shot and 7 killed over Labor Day weekend alone. He said, quote, you know, it would be radical for us to figure out a way to actually do what I've been saying from the very beginning in Washington, and that is seeing politicians creating partnerships that protect their people. Because right now, just the, hey, nothing to see here, moving along, no problem here. Hey, Donald Trump, we don't need you. And, you know, the mayor talking about we're going to protect people's dignity in our city. Yeah. They're more worried about their political stunts and taking that dig at Trump than they are at actually protecting their citizens. And I'd also say it's more than, hey, nothing to see here. It's the whole misleading crime statistics. It's very reminiscent of the campaign season when we were told that Biden's economy was actually really good because of this one document, even though you were struggling to put food on the table. He continued, Scarborough that is, if you look at most crime charts, 8 of the top 10 deadliest cities in America, big cities, are usually in red states, he said back on August 26. So he tried to downplay the violence. Now he's maybe seeing the writing on the wall that J.D. Pritzker and the mayor very much seem to be coming off as pro-crime. Anyway, just interesting where this is headed. The New York Post editorial board saying Illinois Democrat leaders insist they don't need Trump's help to fight crime. But the facts keep proving the opposite. I mean, just think of the disastrous PR from that deadly weekend, that Labor Day weekend. Labor Day weekend saw a mind-numbing 54 people shot in Chicago, 7 fatally, more than twice last year's toll. And though murders in 2025 are down a bit from the 2024 level, they're still 4 times higher per capita than in New York City. No wonder Trump thinks that they could benefit from a federal intervention. Pritzker and the mayor, Johnson, fiercely opposed that intervention. Johnson even ordered police not to cooperate with federal agents, again, showing that they're on the side of criminals and not on the side of law enforcement. Clearly, these Democrat leaders don't want to fix the problem. Better see Chicagoans die than cooperate with Orange Man, writes the New York Post. Is there any better proof that crime is a choice? After all, when Trump sent National Guard units to D.C., crime plunged practically overnight. The city actually went 12 days without a single murder. Even Democrat Mayor Muriel Bowser admitted the surge of officers enhanced D.C.'s cop efforts and has taken steps to make it a more permanent arrangement. New York City's experience in the 90s and since absolutely proves that proactive policing can sink crime rates across the board. Even as more recent states and city anti-police reforms sent crime edging back up after 2019, only to be reversed again as NYPD Commissioner Jessica Tisch restores, for now anyway, the emphasis on quality of life policing. That is, it's not simply that Pritzker and leaders of other crime-plagued jurisdictions should be begging for extra free-of-charge law enforcement help. It's that they actually are actively choosing pro-crime policies. For example, Johnson last week insisted incarceration is racist and immoral and not the way to drive down violence. That's Mayor Johnson saying just last week that incarceration is racist and immoral and not the way to drive down violence. In California, Governor Newsom is refusing to budget funds to enforce tough-on-crime measures the state voters last year passed overwhelmingly, despite his opposition, last year. National Guard or not, tolerating high crime is a political decision, and most Democratic politicians keep making the wrong choice. They have been on the wrong side of history when it comes to crime. We see it here in New York with bail reform, with raise the age. And then there was, and this is going to tie in with our media update. On MSNBC, Ashley Parker, who's a senior national political correspondent from the Washington Post, she penned an article from The Atlantic describing Trump's deployment of the National Guard as an occupation that had made life terrifying for undocumented immigrants. Quote, to some, especially undocumented immigrants, the Guard presence is disconcerting at best, terrifying at worst. It was clear that almost no one felt particularly good about the arrangement, not the National Guardsmen, many of whom clearly don't want to be there, leaving their families and jobs in order to spread mulch and pick up trash, and not the residents, many of whom were furious with the occupation of their city, or worse, terrified of what the military's presence portend for them and their loved ones. The piece also mocked the National Guard's presence in the city as sitcom-esque and their backdrops farcical. Now, following the article, where she criticizes the National Guard for being there in Washington, this is the problem with Twitter. People took to Twitter and they found a past tweet that she had sent out, and not even that long ago. Her post to X or tweet, or however you want to say it. Quote, after another bike was, this was what she posted. After another bike was stolen last night, my husband and I realized our life as DC homeowners by the numbers include 1 stolen car, 2 stolen scooters, Vespas, 3 stolen bikes, a partridge in a pear tree, etc. So criticizing the crime in Washington, D.C., all while criticizing the fight against crime. People calling it hypocrisy. Parker did not respond to a request for comment. But this goes back to what Joe Scarborough said when this all started happening, that yes, there may be a lot of people that want you to think that they're very upset with the National Guard and this crime crackdown in Washington, D.C., but behind closed doors, when they're not virtue signaling, when they're not beating on the pots and pans at 8 o'clock at night, they're actually very grateful that they can walk down the street for more than 2 blocks. They can go out and eat at a restaurant or take their family for a walk. They're actually relieved. But that ties in with the hypocrisy in the media in general. Did you see what Trump and Carolyn Levitt, did you see that they went after Margaret Brennan? We've talked about Margaret Brennan in the past. She's very confrontational when it comes to interviewing Republican guests, not so much so when it's Democrat interviews. CBS News anchor Margaret Brennan, both the president and Carolyn Levitt were doing an interview, and during that interview, Trump spoke with Regan Reese, White House correspondent at the Daily Caller, about his gripes with the mainstream media. That's when the president weighed in on Brennan, saying the woman on the face of the nation is so bad. That's when Levitt chimed in. Margaret Brennan. Yeah, Margaret Brennan, what do you think of her? Trump asked Carolyn Levitt. Levitt replied, she's stupid. You could put that on the record. Trump jabbed, she's nasty. The president added that he's surprised that Secretary of State Marco Rubio continues to appear on Brennan's show as a guest. The level of hatred, I'm surprised he goes on there. The level of hatred when they're asking the questions, which is very true. You've seen it yourself. We've talked about it in the past on this program. She is so... nasty is a good word that Trump uses, a very condescending acting, very aggressive, but not in fair questions, but it's a style that is driving me wild, just crazy. It makes me so mad. But that style of going, well, you do know that, to be condescending and talk down to their guests. So if, Rubio gives something, well, you do know that's her style very much. The level of hatred, I'm surprised he goes on there, the level of hatred when they're asking the question. But Carolyn Levitt going out on a limb there saying she's stupid, you can put that on record. Wow. So there's a media update. Yeah, we got let me see. So we're going to move to New York State issues, but since we're on the media, I'll run a little late for this segment. John Malone, the billionaire cable king who helped bankroll CNN at its birth, torched the network for becoming a partisan, left-leaning, anti-Trump megaphone. The 84-year-old media mogul has a new memoir out called Born to be Wired. CNN employees, largely left of center, express their opinions too much in their news, Malone wrote. Malone called CNN a left-leaning anti-Trump news service. They can't help themselves. CNN is now a shadow of what its founders had envisioned. The remarks carry weight because Malone isn't just another cranky critic. He built his cable empire by wiring 20% of American households through Telecommunications Inc. and remains one of the most influential figures in the media. Wow. Not disagreeing, but interesting coming out and saying it, that CNN is a left-leaning anti-Trump news organization. All right, nothing we didn't already know, but let's take a short break. When we come back, some New York State issues. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
When you're online, don't forget to visit our Facebook page at Big Fox News. Catch up on news from the Twin Tiers. Vote on the daily question and hear about local events. All on Facebook.com/Big Fox News.
Sophia A., grade 4, absent, because transportation was absent.
Julio M., grade 6, absent, because Wi-Fi was absent.
Maria J., grade 12, absent, because childcare for siblings was absent.
Jacob O., grade 12, absent, because housing was absent.
Aisha S.,
Olivia H.
Darren L.
Cole W.
Preston L., absent.
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 Because healthcare, anti-bullying,
Mental health support was absent.
We're calling roll on the 15 million absent students.
Their reasons why are very real.
And yet the solution is a present, caring adult to help them along their path.
When communities and schools is present, 99% of our students are present and ready to learn.
Dante Brown, Big Fox News, Southern Tier.
If you are one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer. If you used hair relaxers and have been diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call us now. There's no fee unless we win your case. Call today.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio on Marcus Street in Corning. A comment from a viewer: so Americans have too many guns. But on the other hand, it's great we do, as no other country tries to invade us. As people in the U.S. that are armed outnumber the military, it's a double whammy if we were invaded. Thank you very much for that. All right, let's talk about some New York State issues. Representative Elise Stefanik. Now, I know we talk about Elise Stefanik a lot, and I realize I'm already running late on this segment. But Elise Stefanik, everybody wants her to declare her run for governor. She even saying it's not a matter of if, it's when. The one problem that we heard after Mike Lawler declined to run is that she's maybe waiting till November, which the problem with that is if she ultimately decides not to run, Republicans stand no chance. So I'm still not sure the time frame. This is not to criticize her. I just haven't understood it. I know there's been people that have come up with creative, we'll say, reasons for it, and I do appreciate that. But Elise Stefanik is calling for a federal probe into Governor Hochul and the layoff decisions during the New York prison strike. She's calling on the feds to probe Governor Hochul and the handling of the massive illegal prison strike that exacerbated the crisis in state lockups earlier this year. In a letter sent to Hochul and the U.S. Department of Labor, shared with the New York Post, Stefanik alleged the Department of Corrections and Community Supervision violated federal law when it canned striking corrections officers en masse, ensnaring some employees who were on legitimate leave at the time. Yeah, we had those horrible stories of people that were on maternity leave, these type of things, being fired because they did not show up at a certain time and certain date. These actions represent yet another example of illegal conduct by Governor Hochul and her administration, which has shown a marked hostility towards law enforcement, said Stefanik. That's a great line. Stefanik, who says she is running for governor next year but is yet to formally declare her candidacy, is also accusing DOCCS of using a vaguely defined no-call list of corrections officers the department refuses to rehire following the strike. She said the firings may violate the Federal Family and Medical Leave Act of 1993. Quote, recently I learned of a no-call list that includes at least 200 individuals statewide whom the governor and the commissioner have deemed ineligible for rehire. No justification or legitimate reason have been provided for the existence of this list. Now, Hochul's office responded, saying, unlike Congresswoman Stefanik, Governor Hochul does not condone breaking the law. Corrections officers who choose to participate in the illegal work stoppage earlier this year willingly, but put both the incarcerated population and their colleagues who remained on the job at risk, said Hochul's spokesperson. DOC's spokesperson said the department was not actively recruiting previously fired personnel, and the corrections union members who believe they were wrongfully axed can file a grievance through their collective bargaining agreement. Hochul's office wrote, the administration follows the law and will do so if grievances were filed, but the governor's commitment to reforming our correction system is steadfast. So there you are on an update from Stefanik, calling for a federal probe into Hochul's layoffs during the New York State prison strike. Now, yesterday, probably 2 days ago, Governor Hochul gave an interview with New York Magazine, and it covered a lot of issues. You can find it yourself at the, Empire Report. It's exactly the same kind of talking points that we've seen in the past. I mean, when they ask about the budget cuts coming from the feds, this is what she said. On July 4th, Trump declared war on the rest of the nation. And as a result, we've already been having to find a way to make up for $750 million cuts this year. We saw this coming. This was not a surprise. Wait, you saw this coming, and yet that's the budget you proposed and passed? Donald Trump was telegraphing that he was going to not care about hurting everyday Americans. And as a state where half our children are on Medicaid and 1/3 of New Yorkers are on Medicaid, that he went right to the heart of something we treasure, which is giving people the dignity of health care. We're going back to our agencies right now, aggressively talking about it. Some programs that might have to be new programs that we might have to put on hold a little while, but also focus on how to squeeze every penny we can. Yeah, that's one thing we know about Albany. Just squeeze every penny. No waste of money whatsoever. All right. And how does the state of New York manage that when these cuts are going to be so painful? That one's dynamic. So she talked about Mamadani, which we're going to talk about here when we come back. But they asked her about the National Guard. And what's the difference between Trump threatened deployment and your own? Because she used it in the subway system. She used it in the prisons. She said, I'm the commander-in-chief of the National Guard in New York State, and I made a decision at a time when crime on the subways was ever increasing. Nothing was changing that dynamic, and there was enormous fear from people who were wanting to go back and work in person and people letting their kids go back on the subway to go to school. I needed to stop that fear factor. I took an aggressive position, and I will tell you, after deploying National Guard in there who do not have a military role to play, they're not allowed to arrest anybody, and they're basically a deterrent. Their presence alone within days calmed down the fear and anxiety of going into the subways. I heard this from countless people, and people called me or told me on the street how grateful they were. And I didn't want there to be an abuse or an overreach. They don't arrest people. I limited their powers dramatically. Donald Trump should not be involved in local policing matters. And I will say this, if you're seriously contemplating this, it's an enormous insult to the highly dedicated men and women of the NYPD. He's spitting in the face of our law enforcement to say they can't do their job. These are people who don't deserve that, to be undermined by a military presence. In Washington, D.C., I lived there for 10 years, another 2 when I went to Congress. My children lived down in that area. My daughter took her 6-week-old baby to the Museum of Natural History. She said, Mom, it's insane. It's a militarized zone. They're standing there, hundreds of them, walking up and down the mall with nothing to do. Those are not the areas of high crime. If they really want to be helpful, coordinate with the mayor. Say, do you need some extra help? Well, let's look at the high crime areas. All right. Then they asked, you vowed to have New York redraw its congressional lines. Unlike California, though, the soonest there would be new Democrat-friendly House seats is 2028. She said, I truly wish I had the same authority that my friend Gavin Newsom has. I'd be out there already by now, because this is a fight that we cannot avoid. History will judge us otherwise as a state that did not step up to the fight when our democracy demanded it. And that is not hyperbole. That is what I really feel is happening here. You know, the way Texas Republicans are absolutely cheating and throwing out the rule book is just shocking what they're doing. I'm not saying when they go low, I'm going to go lower, although I am tempted. I'll just say this. I will go as low as they go because I'm not willing to sit on the sidelines of this game. It's not possible for me. Not possible for Governor Hochul, folks. Just not possible. But I also think it's interesting. On paper, in the history books, California signed in their redistricting before Texas. So who really was retaliation? Texas was combating the redistricting is really on paper. We're going to do it, said Hochul. It's going to be in the 2025-2026 session. We're going to do it in the first day of the 26th session, and then the other voting reforms, because that's customary when they get done. The first couple of weeks of the session, we'll look at that. I like to look at mail-in voting, how to make sure we protect that in New York against whatever Trump does on mail-in voting. I've had a look at other areas to protect what we've already done, which is to have some of the best voting rights laws in the country. They can't touch those. Democrats have been the good government people, right? We like rules that take money out of politics and take undue influence from the political people, but those days are over. But I don't want to believe they're permanently over. When there's new leadership in Washington and we get Democrats in Congress supporting what they've really introduced, which is a national standard for redistricting and having independent commissions in every state, we can get back to that. I'm not giving up on that model of good government. I'm truly not. I just know that these times call for drastic measures. So she's giving up the supposed alleged good government beliefs that she had because that protects good government. And she did not endorse Mamadani in that interview. That was too much time spent on her interview, exactly as we predicted with the cliches. Let's take our break. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox will be right back.
When you're online, don't forget to visit our Facebook page at Big Fox News. Catch up on news from the Twin Tiers. Vote on the daily question and hear about local events. All on Facebook.com/Big Fox News.
Enjoy a taste of the Finger Lakes at Hector Hideaway.
Dine inside or out on the deck for gorgeous lake views and pair your meal with a local wine, beer, or beverage. Visit us today at Hector Hideaway.
Tire Warning is your back-to-school tune-up authority. Family service you can trust. Save big on all brand name tires, suspensions, oil changes, inspections, tune-ups, and exhaust. We give you peace of mind this school season. Your car, your kid's car, your off-to-college car. We have all kinds of tires for all kinds of vehicles. We love tires. We love maintaining your vehicles.
I would highly recommend them.
We came in,
5 minutes, we're in and out. Get the job done right the first time.
Tire World of Corning, family service you can trust.
Is this your mom?
Yes.
And that's your dad?
Nope.
I'm the father.
Even if you're the father, you're lying. My family does not like my boyfriend.
Solid family.
I've had enough of this. I'm not your mommy.
Now you're just talking crazy.
Don't do that. I'm not your auntie, I'm your mother.
Can't cross mama and come in here and get treated nice. Your case is dismissed and so are you.
The Bix website is here now. WYDCTV.com. Local and national news that keeps you informed and involved. WYDCTV.com. Today's weather, up to date and in your town. WYDCTV.com. Sports news, local events, and health stories that affect you. WYDCTV.com. The Big Fox website. Your news here now. WYDCTV.com.
Look at that beautiful view. Thank you to Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back broadcasting live from the Hasselson Studio on Market Street in Corning. Let's go to some viewer comments because I'm running late. So this will be perfect. We'll go to viewer comments and then we'll probably take another break. All right. Yokel, this person calls, I think obviously joking on the name Hokel, applied that Elise broke the law. I think Hokel ought to look in the mirror and that Elise should sue her for defamation of character. Yeah, I don't know what that's even a reference to unless it means in support of some of Trump's policies and she believes that's breaking the law. I'm not really sure, but yes. She tries to hit back at Elise. It falls flat to me. But that kind of goes to this other viewer's point. Why do you think Cuomo picked Hochul for his lieutenant governor? She's dumb as a hay rake, okay? Corrupt like him and a devout communist. I do think there was, and you've heard me say it a million times, she's not ready for the prime time, right? That she's not up to that level where she would be governor. And I think that's the reason why Cuomo had picked her. Never really seeing her as any type of threat, any type of primary challenge, anything that, someone that wasn't going to get in the way. So when Cuomo steps down, she's in a position that she's just not ready for. And she shows it time and time again. She wants to be. She desperately, desperately wants to be. With that primetime address during, or it wasn't primetime, but the address during the DNC, which was embarrassing. When she gives these off-the-cuff remarks, it just does a horrible job. But I'll continue with what this viewer said. Hochul's done nothing for the citizens of New York State and everything for the American Communist Democrats' agenda, lining her pockets and the pockets of her friends and supporters. Thank you very much. And Ken writes in, wonder if anyone received the STAR rebate checks yet. I think New York is holding up the checks to try and make more interest income to help pay for supplying health care to the illegal immigrants. That's an interesting point. I don't know when they were due, though. I always thought they were closer to election, like October. But if anybody's got one, let me know. So we can all start keeping an eye on our mailbox. Okay, where do I want to go? Oh, one thing. Just because Hochul had mentioned that she's got to gerrymander to save the country from gerrymandering or something, or to save democracy, she has to get rid of good governance. Again, the arguments that they get themselves into are not enviable. But Democrats are scrambling to keep their crusade against Trump's national redistricting push from fizzling out. This coming from Politico. House Democrats are considering establishing an organization to raise and spend for their remapping effort as they look to counter an aggressive Republican move that could determine control of the chamber next year, according to 3 people granted anonymity to describe private conversations. And House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries has privately discussed redistricting with blue state governors, according to another person. Now, what's interesting on that is the organizing and raising money, because we know that the Democrat Party is really struggling to raise money. Maybe they look at this as a different avenue that maybe more people would latch onto. The Center for American Progress is urging blue states to abandon their independent redistricting commission and through private strategy sessions and public appeals Texas House Democrat Caucus Chair Gene Wu is asking Democrats across red and blue states to take a no-holds-barred approach to resisting GOP redistricting. Democrat National Committee Chair Ken Martin praised Wu during a meeting in Minneapolis last week for igniting a national movement within this party. This is an all-out call to arms. That chorus of everyone needs to get off their you-know-what and do something is growing louder and louder. And more elected Democrats who have seen as doing nothing, their commitment to our country is going to be questioned. But Democrats face a lopsided fight. They're hamstrung by constitutional restrictions or independent commissions in some states, while Republicans are generally free of those legal barriers and have leadership trifectas in Indiana, Florida, Missouri, and Ohio, promising state lawmakers fewer restrictions to draw Democrat rivals out of their seats. Anyway, the Democrat Party is increasingly frustrated. The base, that is, their constituents, their voters, increasingly frustrated over redistricting. But this is like why they're frustrated that not enough is being done against Trump. They don't understand the rules, the common Democrat voter, and that's why they're outraged that nothing is getting done when the Republicans have the majority, when they don't have any House, Senate, or White House, and they don't understand, because I don't know if they're just so ill-informed, that they're not going to get the wins they want. That's why they're really banking on the government shutdown, that they think they may have a little bit of leverage there. And it depends if Republicans go back to the ways that they always did things, which were, oh no, the media is going to hate us if there's a government shutdown. That's going to be the end of the world. If they go down that road, then yeah, they do have a little bit of leverage. If it's more of a take no prisoners attitude, like Trump has, and they don't have the leverage they think they do. But we're going to talk a little bit about Mamdani when we come back, because of just a couple of quick New York updates, and to wrap up on that, also some policies in general. One guest essay, just to continue on this conversation with gerrymandering. Charles Munger, a physicist and political donor and campaigner, says, do not re-gerrymander California. Gerrymanders are a cancer, and mid-decade gerrymanders are metastasis. If we trade away California's independent redistricting for a partisan power grab, we kill the cure. We send a dangerous message to the rest of the country that reform is conditional and principles can be abandoned when they are inconvenient. That is how cynicism spreads, trust in government erodes, and citizen voices fade. True reform must withstand the temptations of political advantage and the pressures of the moment. California's commission was created to rise above those temptations, and we must defend it now or watch the promise of fair representation collapse into just another broken pledge. On that note, we're going to take our break. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking after this.
More cars, lower prices. Simmons Rockwell. Make car buying simple when you drive your deal at a Simmons Rockwell location near you, where you'll always find more cars at lower prices.
When you're online, don't forget to visit our Facebook page at Big Fox News. Catch up on news from the Twin Tiers. Vote on the daily question and hear about local events. All on Facebook.com/Big Fox News.
The Fox Sports app isn't just any sports app. It's your sports app.
For the touchdown!
Yeah, yours. Your teams. Your highlights. Your scores. Your stories. Just choose your favorites to get more of what you want.
To the end zone!
And of course, stream your teams live. The best part is free with your pay TV subscription. Grab your Fox Sports app today.
Something with a diamond in it.
Diamondback rattlesnake.
It's in the name. Name a low-calorie food you might make your edible underwear out of.
Salmon.
Watch it weeknights. Share it the next day.
Wild caught Norwegian teriyaki.
Share in the fun. Weeknights on Family Feud.
7 and 7:30 on Big Fox.
If you are one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer. If you used hair relaxers and have been diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call us now. There's no fee unless we win your case. Call today.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Marcus Street in Corning. We're talking about, we haven't talked about him yet, or in a while actually, Zohran Mamdani. This should come as no surprise, but former Mayor Bill de Blasio has endorsed Socialist Democratic nominee Zohran Mamdani in the race for City Hall, contending that his fellow progressives' bold, sweeping agenda will save the Big Apple. Quote, "We don't just need Zohran Mamdani to be our mayor because he has the right ideas or because they can be achieved," he said in his op-ed to New York Daily News. "We need him because in his heart and in his bones, he cannot accept a city that prices out the people who built it and keep it running." But the perpetually bumbling de Blasio's endorsement drew scoffs from many insiders. Not sure how much a progressive hack's endorsement matters, said one operative. "I thought it was time for new energy." Yes, keep in mind, that's very much the anti-establishment idea. Now, de Blasio was very much an avowed socialist, so he does have kind of the beliefs of the newer generation of Democrats that have gone even farther left, the AOCs, the Mamdanis, but he's still, because of his age, considered a insider, if you will, kind of the old way of doing things. Tom Suozzi, the representative who ran, I think he just won last year, he believes the Zohran Mamdani and AOC, now keep in mind, Tom Suozzi is a Democrat, he thinks that they should leave the Democrat Party and create their own. Zohran Mamdani and other Democrat socialists should create their own party because I don't want that in my party, Suozzi, a Democrat, said on CBS News, The Point. Suozzi, whose 3rd congressional district includes parts of Queens as well as Long Island, also said he hopes that Mamdani doesn't win because it will be bad for the Democratic Party. There is a concern there amongst Democrats that with his win, especially with the lack of success he'll have with the socialist policies, that him and the AOC being the face of the party will cause the party to move even farther in that direction, and that direction is not favored by the American people. That's why we see overall the large losses in November. He also said House Democrat Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries should not endorse Mamdani, the party's nominee for City Hall, because it would be bad for the Democrat Party nationwide. Suozzi did endorse Andrew Cuomo back in June, but Mamdani handily defeated Cuomo, as we know. The Queens Assemblyman is now favored to win the mayor's race that includes Republican nominee Curtis Sliwa and incumbent Mayor Eric Adams and Cuomo, and I didn't know this one, a lawyer, Jim Walden. I think we mentioned him. But Suozzi believing they should leave, the kind of the Democrat Socialist Party should leave, create their own party because he doesn't want to be associated with them. Michael Goodwin, I said I would mention this. We don't have time to get through the whole thing because I already have to take a break. But Michael Goodwin says New York City needs a mayor like Rudy Giuliani again. This coming off the heels of the president announcing Giuliani was going to receive the Presidential Medal of Freedom. As Michael Goodwin says, better late than never. The announcement followed the serious weekend car crash, which we now learn that he is doing better. His injuries, said to include a broken vertebrae, are not life-threatening, and he has been released from the hospital. A likely result is Trump's presentation will focus almost exclusively on Giuliani's greatest achievement, his stellar tenure as New York's mayor. Although we know he was Trump's lawyer and these type of things. His first term established a political standard for big achievements in a range of areas that may never be matched. And all that happened before Oprah Winfrey bestowed on him the halo of America's mayor for what happened in the aftermath of the 9/11 terrorist attacks. His leadership following the terror attack was in fundamental ways possibly only because of the enormous challenges he had tackled over the previous 7+ years. It's almost as if he had known that he and his hometown would be tested beyond measure. To watch him direct city recovery efforts at ground zero while the pile was still burning, then seamlessly slip to a church to walk a bride down the aisle and then deliver a eulogy at St. Patrick's Cathedral for a beloved firefighter or police officer was to witness leadership at its absolute finest. If only his likeness were on the horizon now, when the city is in desperate need of bold, sensible leadership as it once again faces rampant decline in the midst of a mayoral election. Now, we don't need to go through the whole history of Giuliani, but saying what a welcome leader that would be in today's Mamadani world. In fact, Mamadani, says Michael Goodwin, an anti-cop socialist and anti-Semite, has all the wrong ideas for New York. His election would take the city in a wrong direction to a version of the bad old days that Giuliani and Bloomberg overcame. But that's not to say that Rudy model has vanished. In fact, a certain president was a close witness to Giuliani's operatic performance and the changes he brought about in his hometown. Although Trump was never accused of being a shrinking violet in the business world, I've long believed that he was largely inspired by Rudy's take-no-prisoner approach to politics and realized that it was a viable path for him to follow as he too crashed the political establishment. Trump, of course, personalized that approach to twice capture the White House, surpassing Rudy and his own dreams of sitting in the Oval Office. Even now, the similarities between the two men remain striking. In both of his terms, Trump has been, like Rudy, a perpetual motion machine who rarely sleeps and is always ready for the next fight. He, too, has an endless stream of big ideas in the works, waiting their turn in the limelight. Both are New Yorkers to the core and were born to lead. Fortunately for the rest of us, they chose public service. Now, Giuliani did offer an update yesterday on his condition. He said he has felt more pain than maybe I have ever felt. He's got a back brace in the photo. We got hit in the back, I would say the hardest I've ever been hit in my whole life, including 2 accidents I was in when I was a child and playing football, he said. It seemed like the car was going maximum speed, 70, 80 miles an hour, kind of spinned us a teeny bit. Instead of getting a whiplash in my neck, I got whiplash in my body. My body got thrown forward in a second and thrown back, and I could feel the pain immediately in the middle of my body. He said he was frozen in agony, but managed to look over at Goodman, who was driving, to see if he was okay, noting his confidant was constricted by the steering wheel. I got terrible injuries, but I would have been killed if I didn't have my seatbelt on, Giuliani added. I would have gone right through the window, so thank God I had the seatbelt on. I felt more pain than maybe I ever felt. There is your update. All right, we need to take a break. Stay with us. We'll be right back. We're Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
Steuben County Office for the Aging will be hosting a public hearing on Thursday, September 18th at First Presbyterian Church in Bath. This hearing is to review the 2026 annual implementation plan for the Older Americans Act and the Steuben County Office for the Aging. This public hearing will take place at 9 a.m. on Thursday, September 18th in the Fellowship Hall of the First Presbyterian Church in Bath. Copies of the plan will be available at the Office for the Aging.
In Albany, Buffalo, was born.
Nearly 500 kilos of cocaine has been seized in a bust.
Thousands lined the pier at Seneca Harbor. Race weekend brought thousands to Watkins Glen International.
Hundreds and horseheads joined other cities around the country on Saturday for the No Kings protest.
Day 1 of the National Glider Competition. Severe flooding has caused major disruptions in parts of Steuben County.
Throughout the year, prison reform has become a priority around New York State.
It's a season of Sherry.
Having a good time has always been my #1 goal. I tend to get crazy. At my age, I should not be jumping up and down like that. And if you don't know what I mean, ask your mama. The young ones, y'all like, we don't know what you're talking about. But I promise you, in 30 years, you will.
It's the best time in daytime.
Weekdays at 2 p.m. on Big Fox.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson's studio. Let's go to some viewer comments. First up, in my opinion, Democrats are grasping at straws or in the position they find themselves in because they are not in touch with reality and are in a panic because their socialist agenda is not sitting well with those of us who have fought against communism. And we see that a little bit with Swazi. We've seen it with others that are trying to distance themselves, but they find themselves in a difficult situation because the money, the attention are going to the AOCs and the Mamadani. But I'll continue with what this viewer had to say. Plus, Democrats say one thing at some point in time, only later to do a 180. In other words, they say at any given point what they think their audience wants to hear. Very typical of those of out-of-touch, nefarious losers, and a wolf in sheep's clothing is still a wolf. Thank you very much. Rick writes in, good morning, Frank. Well, good morning, Rick. My two-word description of Trump's policy is seriously unhinged. Have a good one, y'all. Thank you, Rick. Appreciate that. Comment from a different viewer. Can anyone explain to me why Curtis Silwa is not getting the attention? Oh, yeah. I got this from a couple different people, so I'm going to paraphrase. I think the thing with Curtis Silwa is he's in that scenario where he's always running. And he's run for so many elected offices, and of course he doesn't win as a Republican in the city. Okay, that's not to discredit him. If you look at his polling, he's doing better than Adams, but to this one viewer's point, Adams gets more attention. What's the word I want to use? But the minds of politics, the people that think they know all about politics, they believe it's just essentially it should be a two-person race. And then there's the argument of who those two people should be. It should either be Mamadani, because he won the primary, versus Cuomo, or versus Adams. So Silwa, I think, with the stigma of having run a lot, but also being the fact that he is a Republican in New York City, the media normally focuses on the two. And that's why they want one or the other to drop out, but most have agreed that's not going to happen as they both have egos, Adams and Cuomo. So I'm with you. He doesn't get a lot of attention. It's unfortunate. I think if there were ever a chance for a Republican to win in New York City, now would be the opportunity with how split and fractured everything is, but they're just not giving the attention to him. By the way, we mentioned this yesterday. The New York Post praising Jerry Nadler for passing the torch, not clinging to it. He's still 70 plus, right? I mean, I don't know. They're praising him because he thinks that there should be fresh new blood. The problem with that is the fresh new blood that is winning in some of these races are the AOCs, are the Mamadanis. So you've got to keep that in mind. That's the new generation of leadership that he's talking about. I know I'm going quick because we have so much to talk about. Hakeem Jeffries says the spending bill must be bipartisan to avoid the government shutdown. Returning from Congress' month-long summer recess, Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries said Tuesday that Democrats have a simple message for the American people: you deserve better. He said House Democrats held more than 1,000 events across the country last month to talk about the economy, health care, and efforts to clean up corruption in Washington. They plan to continue that focus in negotiations with Republican leadership on a spending bill to avert a government shutdown by the end of the month. Jeffries saying, we have all been very clear that we are willing to find bipartisan common ground in order to pass a spending bill, avoid a reckless Republican government shutdown, and meet the needs of the American people. But that spending bill has to be bipartisan, a product of negotiation, and has got to serve the interests of the American people in terms of health, safety, national security, and economic well-being. So what that means is bipartisan. It has to be bipartisan. That means you have to cave to everything that the Democrats demand. Also, you notice that they're already trying to label this as a reckless Republican government shutdown. So be prepared for that, and it's whether or not Republicans are scared of that as they used to be, that we will see. He said that Democrats are ready, willing, and able to find a bipartisan path forward beginning today. There's more than enough time to reach an agreement that meets the needs of the American people. Now, Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer sent a Dear Colleague letter asking Republicans to work across the aisle to get Democrat support on a government spending bill. Senate Republicans must decide, stand up for the legislative branch or enable Trump's slide towards authoritarianism. So that's the bipartisanship they're talking about, calling the president an authoritarian. So we can only imagine where those negotiations are going to go. I do think it's interesting that Schumer's weighing in already as he received so much criticism last go around. We are nearly out of time. So get your last second comments in and we'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
What better way to start or end every day than relaxing in your very own Hesselson's hot tub? Massage therapy, relaxation, stress reliever, pain management, soothing muscles, or just spending time with a loved one. Hot water therapy really does make every day better. Hesselson's has been a part of this great community for over 70 years, still being locally owned and operated. So make the drive to Hesselson's and start making your path to a better life today. And after 70 years, it's still fun to poke in the corners at Hesselson's.
10 p.m. somewhere. Do you know what your kids are doing online? Brought to you by Ferrario Jeep.
Football show breaks down all things NFL. GMFB Overtime.
Check out top highlights, player interviews, special guests, and everything in between. 5 days a week.
GMFB Overtime. It's football for everyone.
If you have one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer. If you used hair relaxers and have been diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call us now. There's no fee unless we win your case. Call today.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are wrapping up today's edition of Frankly Speaking. Thank you for all the comments. Let's get to our last little section of comments. Hakeem Jeffries is a perfect example of a socialist saying what he thinks his audience wants to hear. He has not been that successful, though. He has been receiving a lot of pushback because he's the establishment from the farther left wing, the AOC kind of wing. It's really interesting. He got away with most of it, but there was a lot of criticism there for a while, and that he wasn't doing enough and being part of the resistance. But I'll continue with a comment from a different viewer. I'm grateful Rudy, that's Rudy Giuliani, survived and pray for full recovery. He's one of the good guys, and he's been abused by the machine as well. And final comment here. When did the judicial system become the most powerful branch of government? And the lower courts at that. Great show. Can't wait for you to get syndicated. Well, that's so nice. The kind words at the end to make sure I read your comment. It's a great comment anyway, even without that. I appreciate it. Yeah, that's been the point. I mean, we have a whole segment dedicated to the kind of judicial activism, not on purpose, just that's the news cycle. And I think what they believe, some of these judges, are that they have the power to thwart the Trump agenda and the agenda that was that was voted on by the American people overwhelmingly. The reason I said visiting. Mark writes in my opinion, at least Stefanik is running for governor because she is visiting a lot of New York counties. That's what happens when I try to read a comment live on the air while I'm thinking ahead. Yes, I hope you're right, and I hope they declare she declares sooner rather than later. That does it for today's edition of Frankly Speaking. Thank you to everybody who joined us on tomorrow's broadcast. We're going to learn all about the big Notre Dame High School Legends and Legacies Festival that's coming up this Saturday. So don't miss that. We're going to have representatives from Notre Dame to tell you all about it and how you can help support Notre Dame as well as have a great time doing it. So you don't want to miss tomorrow's broadcast or any broadcast of Frankly Speaking. We will see you tomorrow morning bright and early. I look forward to it already.
William Mattar has been a great brother, but I was surprised to learn how many people knew he was my brother.
William Mattar's on this?
Oh, brother. Because when Big Insurance finds out that he's on a car crash case.
So who's on this?
They hired William Mattar.
Oh, brother.
Word travels fast.
You know, they got Mattar on this. Mattar?
Oh, brother.
Hurt in a car? Call my brother, William Mattar. 444-4444.